Hi Vanessa Ruck, the girl on a bike. Welcome back to my New Zealand series. I am here on a Harley-Davidson Road Glide, and this is one of the videos in a series as I tour around South Island. Now in this video I'm going to be talking about the actual bike, what I think of it, some of the things that I think maybe need improving, and hopefully a little bit of information that might help you decide if this is the touring bike for you. A bit of context, I am here on South Island in New Zealand. There are motorbikes around, so I apologise if you can hear any of the engine noises, but I'm down here for the Burt Monroe event, which just happens to be on while I'm touring. Now, I'm here on a road trip with an official Harley-Davidson tour operator, Tour One, and Gary, who is the guy behind Tour One, is someone that I've done a lot of trips with before. This is actually my fourth Tour One adventure, and I think for me the reason why I like coming back to Tour One is it's kind of like the creme de la creme of organised tours. Everything that you could want, from the amazing food, the good hotels, I've got my priorities, to the best riding roads, to the places where you really need to stop and get your camera out. They're just the overall package as far as touring. So that is how I've ended up in New Zealand, upside down on a Harley-Davidson. Now I've got a rental bike that through Tour One we have sort of organised for my trip, and that is from who are a Christchurch-based rental company for Harley-Davidsons, and this is the Road Glide Special. So I'm going to talk through some of my experience on this bike. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos before, you will know that I won't get on a bike and just start to tell you what I think of it. Because to me, for me to have or feel like I have any credibility telling you what I think of a bike, what I don't like, whether it's any good, you need to have your bum in your seat. So I am about 2,500 kilometres into this road trip, which to me is quite a decent amount of time getting to know, building a relationship and working out the quirks of a motorcycle. At the moment, you can see from the epic scene around me, this is actually a great white breeding ground, so I'll be careful when I go for a swim a little bit later. And if you were to go that way a little bit, quite a long way, you'd hit Antarctic. So it's a very southern point in New Zealand. We're here going to the Burt Monroe event. And if you don't know the Burt Monroe event, it's the world's fastest Indian. Well worth watching that film. And so there's a lot of energy. That's why there's loads of motorbikes around. But let's get into the big red beast behind me. Now, I think the first thing that I kind of want to start with this bike, I just think it has this kind of poise of aggressive stance. It's got its big shark nose fairing at the front, nice sleek lines going back. It's got panniers, and I think for me as a big touring bike, it's probably one of the sexiest, if you can use sexy and touring in the same word, but with this bike I think you can, bikes that you get. And I think as a head turner, we don't ride motorbikes just for the practicality, do we? I mean, having them look good is pretty important. Love the fact that it's got this amazing red pop of a paint as well. It just kind of screams, look at me, as you ride past. I'm obviously wearing red right now. It happens to be one of my favourite colours, red and turquoise, so that's a bit of a win for me. You're then going to start thinking about the comfort of the bike, and this is a touring bike, so having that beautiful cruising style stance. It's got big foot pegs. It's got a really nice stance in terms of your arms. Your hands aren't too high in relation to your blood circulation. Super comfortable seat for your bum. So if you're going to be sucking up the miles, this really is a comfortable bike. I feel like it suits my body really nicely. I've got a nice open hip position. It does actually have some touring pegs if you wanted to cruise. My legs aren't long enough. But the big foot plates are all good. I think that kind of cruising element is a massive winner of this bike. You've got the huge fairing up front, which is going to take away a load of the wind buffering, comfortable seating position. Something worth mentioning with the size of this thing up in front of you with its shark nose is that it's actually mounted to the front end of the bike, not to the handlebars. So if I pick the bike up, I can show you that I can actually move my handlebars completely freely from that. Now, some of the other touring bikes on the market, particularly some of the other Harley-Davidson ones, that fairing is actually on your handlebars, which is no problem. It does give you an extra element of comfort and confidence because it makes your handlebars a lot lighter. And when you're thinking about flying into corners and stuff, not having that weight or even some of the vibration that you can get from having that is going to give you a bit more confidence. I think anything that you can do on a motorcycle to help your confidence is going to be a winner, because hesitation on a motorbike isn't good. And when you're feeling confident, you're less likely to have that hesitation. So as I'm sitting on the bike, it probably leads me on to the seat height. It's a 695mm seat height. I am 169 centimetres tall with a 69 centimetre inside leg. And as you can see, I'll stand it up again, that I have a really bent knee, flat foot, massively easy reach to the ground. So if you're looking for maybe a shorter ride or having confidence, you could look at this bike and think, it's a really big hefty bike. You know, it's weighing in at 378 kilograms wet. That's once you've got the fuel, you're going to add your panniers. But actually that weight, if you consider how low the seat is nice and low. Harley have designed that, you know, the V-twin, the weight's low. I can actually sort of stand here and wiggle the bike around pretty easily. It is a big heavy bike, but once you're moving and riding along, it's very manageable, so don't be intimidated by it. Now when I first pulled up and saw that this was the bike I was riding, I was a bit like, yeeks, that's a big bike, but it's absolutely beautiful and friendly and smooth. The power in here, oh hello, big bike, big engine to go with it. So this is running the Milwaukee 8114 engine. It's popping out about 93 horsepower, and there's a lot of weight, but there's a lot of power. I mean, that's just over 1.8 litres coming out of there. It's lively, it's responsive. Now, I've been doing this trip myself, solo rider, but I have actually had a couple of days where Emma, you all know Emma, my Ural sidecar adventure, if you haven't seen that video, it's a lot of fun. Emma's my bestest friend, and she was on the back as a pillion, and I had more than enough power to play around even with her on the back, and that made it sound like she's heavy. She's not heavy. Moving on to the extras on the bike then. This is a Road Glide special, but it does have a couple of things added on. So we've got a protection here for the panniers. This is a rental bike, so obviously they want to try and make sure that these bikes are getting the least damage possible. We've got some additional ones at the front as well, and the touring pegs. And one worth mentioning is it's actually got some aftermarket extra Harley-Davidson pipes on there. That's going to give you a little bit more of a beautiful note to the sound. So why don't we hear how it sounds? Okay, so I'm going to start her up, and then I'll let you hear how she purrs. Here we go. Beautiful sound. Now, with a Harley-Davidson, you often think about having a big, aggressive, maybe slightly leery sounding bike, but you've got to remember when you're touring, you've got a lot of time on the bike, and having an engine that's too loud is going to add a lot of fatigue to your riding, and I think they've nailed the balance of a nice purr to the fatigue of the open road and the distance. Now, this has a 22.7 litre fuel tank, so you're looking at around 350, 370 kilometres to a tank, and I think for most countries that you're going to ride in now, you can easily plan around that with fuel tanks. But if you think about the sort of distance that's going to enable you to do, it's a roughly 6 litres per 100 kilometres as far as a fuel efficiency. But it's certainly going to get you on the open road for quite a while with that kind of size fuel tank. Looking at the display that we have up front, there are two massive speakers in there. Now, I kind of prejudged music on a motorcycle, like what's the point? What a weird gimmick. How often do I want to like park up with my bike and have a disco? It's all about the ride, and I don't go fast, but if you're riding sportily, because there are speed limits, you can still hear the music. It's mind-blowing. It's really good quality as well. And I always ride with a Cardo Intercom. So I've got this one here. That enables me to have my music in my helmet, my maps and navigation talking to me. I can take phone calls and talk to my friends while I'm riding along on Intercom. And I will never stop having that. But I didn't really understand, well, why would you want the music on your bike? It is really damn cool. You're just cruising along and you got your tunes playing. It's proper road trip vibes. Anyway, I really like that. I'm having a little bit of a waffle about the speakers, but you can get the idea that I rate them. What I don't rate so much is the navigation system in here. I'm sorry, Harley-Davidson, but what is going on with your navigation system? We as a society are pretty normalised to the efficiency and the user-friendliness of Google Maps, for example, or Waze or whatever they are. That has to be the worst navigation system I've ever experienced. Half of the roads aren't even on it. It doesn't really give you any kind of inputs and maybe there's user error going on, but it's shocking. Sorry, Harley-Davidson. The other thing that actually gets me on this bike, you have your music playing, but when you turn your bike off, every time you turn the bike back on, it turns back on the radio. I've never played the radio on this bike, but yet I turn it on and I get this annoying fuzz. So you always have to try and remember to turn it down before you turn the bike off, so that when you turn it back on, Harley, there just should be a way to just disable that, or make like an Apple CarPlay. When you get in your car, it will automatically be like, Vanessa, where's your phone? Cool, give me the music, and the music's on automatically. I don't know, there's got to be a way to improve that, Harley. Please. Right, moving on, the brakes. There's some big discs up front. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Harley have a bit of a reputation for the brakes not being all that great, and I think it's a thing of a past. When I get on my 2015 Street Bob that I've got at home, Thug, I will often get on it, go into the first corner and be like, yikes, I'm going to go in the ditch because these brakes are terrible. But the modern Harley-Davidsons, that thing stops. At no point this week have I had a moment where I've gone, yeah! Where are the brakes? The brakes are ace. Big panniers at the back here. Now I'm touring, so I've got my kit, my cameras, etc. in there. On this trip in New Zealand, we actually have Van Girl, which is Emma, and she's following us to van. So I've only really got my day stuff in here, but having ridden and cruised and done, I don't know, easily 30,000 miles on Harleys cruising in the last few years, I can appreciate the size of panniers. They open really easily, big void of stuff, and ample space for multiple weeks on the road. If you were riding with a pillion, I actually think you could easily have one pannier each and you'd have no problem. It depends how big your knickers are. If you've got small knickers, it's going to help you out. Up on the back here, we obviously have the seat for your friend. Now, I don't think any pillion seat is really all that inviting. I like to ride the bike, but I will show you that actually it's quite generous, not in relation to some of the bigger Harley-Davidson touring bikes, but in relation to, you know, some pillion seats. I have an optional extra little backrest on it at the moment for Emma. You've got a grab handle here, and actually it's a pretty comfortable seat. And Emma's done, what, 2 days on the back, including today coming here down to the bluff, and she definitely seemed to enjoy it. So I don't think there's any qualms with the seat. Perfectly capable tourer for two. The sissy bar backrest on the back is worth noting. This is an extra on the bike, and it comes off toolless, so it's just two little clips, you can take it on and off, and that gives the pillion a lot more comfort and security. It also gives you a coat rest when you park up. This is a really big bike, can't deny it. Look at the size of it, it's huge. It's 378 kilograms, sounds pretty intimidating, but the weight's really low. Another thing to bear in mind, given it's got a 1.8-ish litre engine, monster, it's actually got a whole load of electronics in there as well to help keep you safe and get you touring with the most support it can give you. And that's things like having cruise control, it's got dual linked braking, so if you give it a fist of the front, it will know to put a little bit of the back. It's got lean braking, it's got hill start assist, there's all kinds of electronics on it. Now, you know, hopefully if you've watched my videos before, maybe you'll know that I'm not the sort of person that will stand here and list specs on a motorbike, because you can just read specs on a motorbike or watch another video that just does specs on a motorbike. For me, it's about actually what it's like to live with and to be out there on the road touring. And as I said, I've done 2,500 miles on this bike. We've had days where we've been out riding, most days between 7 to 9 hours out on the bike. And at no point have I gone, I really need to be at that hotel now. I'm uncomfortable and I'm done. I've been mad comfortable. Every morning I've woken up of a skip, ready to go and get on the bike. My bum's happy to be on the seat. My body's happy to be in the position. There's loads of fun in the throttle. I've got my music playing. I've got my panniers. And it's been a very, very enjoyable bike to ride. Now, I actually think I might go as far as say it's possibly now become my favourite Harley-Davidson. But then there's the Pan America. This is where I'm like so torn, because I love the Pan America, and the Pan America, you can just be like, ooh, hi dirt track, and like go off in the mud. And we all know I like the mud. But for kind of dedicated touring comfort, this really is a spectacular bike. I just feel like it has everything. It's got the looks, that sleek design, it's got the comfort, it's got the power of the engine, it's got the touring capability, got loads of bikes everywhere. And I don't know, I just think it's like this amazing package. Now, is this the ultimate touring bike for you? That's the big old question. Now the reality is that I can't tell you that, because it's going to depend on what sort of riding you're doing, what your bum feels like sat on it, whether that complements your body as far as a riding position. So I'd say get yourself to a dealer and give one a go, and that's the best way to find out if you are going to fall in love with it and whether it's your match made in heaven. It could be. Now I've got a couple more days here in New Zealand exploring around. Do check out my other videos in the New Zealand series. I will be talking about some of the must-do things if you're coming to New Zealand, particularly if you are on a motorcycle. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I will try and get back to you as quickly as possible. But hopefully this video has been interesting. You've learned a little bit more about the Road Glide Special, and maybe got some food for thought as to whether it is the bike for you, or even the bike for you to rent somewhere in the world and go on an adventure. Because remember, you don't have to buy these bikes. There's places all around the world that you can hire and go off and do an adventure, such as me right now in New Zealand with Tour One. So I'm going to get kitted back up and get back on the road. I'm Vanessa Ruck, the Girl on a Bike. Thanks for watching.